Number 1. This incident took place in New York City. On Saturday night, I had dinner with a few friends, and afterwards, I started to go back to the Upper East Side where I live. I had just gotten off the subway, and when I got up to the street, I noticed a young girl in her early 20s leaning against a wall and crying. I also noticed that she was pregnant. Being the sensitive person I am, I kept looking at her and debated if I should say something. She noticed I kept looking at her, and she approached me. Let me just say that it was around 12 degrees, and this girl was wearing just a t-shirt. I became concerned that she was in trouble. She introduced herself as Katie, and told me she was 7 months pregnant and homeless. She asked if I could get her a hot chocolate or some hot beverage from the D&D down the street. I didn't want to be insensitive because that's not the sort of person I am, so I offered to give her some cash instead. To be honest, I was tired and just wanted to go home, but I did want to help her. Now this is where it gets a little weird. I take out my wallet, and she clearly sees I have a few $100s in cash, as well as my credit cards. I'm not trying to sound like a spoiled brat or anything, but that's just the way it was. Either way, she declines the money I offer her, and says that she would much prefer the hot drink. I continued to hold out a $20 bill, and said, "I'm sorry about your situation, and I wish I could help more, but I really need to get home." She keeps insisting, telling me it's only a few blocks away. I again tell her I can't, and hold out the money. She declines once again, but I can now see that she's starting to get aggravated. I apologize again, wish her well, and start to leave, when my curiosity gets the best of me. I see her leaving, and going the opposite direction of the D&D. I then probably made the worst decision, although I don't regret it. I followed her. Something was off about this girl, and I wanted to see what she was up to. I figured I could handle the situation if things got weird. The street we were walking down was crowded, and I managed to remain unseen as I followed her. After maybe 5 minutes, she turned a corner and went up a street. This street was seriously shady as fuck. It was dark and it was empty. I decided to stay back, but kept looking around the corner, only to see her go into what seemed like an alley. I slowly walked to where the corner of the alley was, and carefully peered around to see Katie with 3 men and 1 other woman. They were at the far end of the alley, so I managed to remain undetected. There was what looked like a van. I couldn't tell, but it looked like a small U-Haul van. I overheard them arguing and saying things like, "Next time you wear the t-shirt in the freezing cold," and "It didn't work on the other one last night either." Then I heard a man's voice say, "You need to be more convincing." Katie yelled back at him, "I'm wearing a fucking pregnant belly. How much more convincing can I get?" I then carefully peeked around the corner to see Katie taking off a fake belly she was wearing. At that moment, my heart sank. I almost fell into a trap. I began to walk away, and relaxed a little when I got to a crowded street. When I got home, I called my friend and told them what happened. He had grown up in the city, and told me that he'd heard of people who do stuff like that. But I don't think they wanted to rob me. If that was the case, why didn't Katie take my wallet when I took it out? I walk past that area almost every day, and I've never seen her since. I don't know what their plans were, but they certainly weren't good. Number 2. Before I start, here's a bit of context to my story. My husband and I lived in a small 2-floor house with 2 main entrances, one along the front and the other on the side of the house, which opens up into the laundry room. When we're too busy or it's too late to walk our dog, We hook his collar onto a long line that's attached to one of the pipes on the corner of the house, so he can use the bathroom. We used to do this from the door in our laundry room, but we'd noticed that the large step from the door to the ground had been taking a toll on his hips. As a result, we started letting him out through the front door instead, since the porch is much closer to the ground. This particular night, I was home alone with my dog, and it was around midnight when I decided to let him outside one last time before going to bed. I hook him up on his line, close the door and lock it, before heading into the kitchen to put away the dishes. This was pretty routine. Even if he used the bathroom quickly, he liked to walk around along the front and side of the house for a few minutes before coming back inside. As I'm putting away the dishes, I hear a scratch on the door, which is how my dog signals that he wants to come back inside, so I head over to let him back in. Since I've watched way too many scary movies, I always look through the door's peephole before opening the door. Out of habit, I look to check that my dog is in front of the door. Instead, I see a man staring very intently at the door handle. I freeze with my hand on the door handle. I don't know how much time went by, but then I heard another scratch, this one louder than the last. This wakes me up from my initial shock, and I run to grab my cell phone. I call my husband to tell him what's happening. He was very confused since I probably wasn't explaining the situation very well, but he says he's heading home right now. This is when I realize that my dog is still outside with this person. I head back to the front door, trying to make as little noise as possible to check whether the stranger is still there. Like before, he's standing there, head bowed, looking at the doorknob. I tiptoe over to the laundry room and slowly open the door as quietly as possible. I can't see my dog anywhere, and the side of my house is covered in gravel. I knew I couldn't step outside without making a lot of noise. With my heart still pounding in my chest, I go to the front door to keep an eye on the stranger, and to get a better look at him. I considered calling the police, but I didn't feel they'd take me seriously, since all this man was doing was standing in front of my house. I tried taking a picture of him with my cell phone, but my camera was only able to take pictures of the peephole, and not the image behind the glass. All of a sudden, the man looks up directly at me. I swear he knows I'm there. He glares at me, then opens his mouth to show this taunting, malicious grin. He stood there that way for a few seconds. With that, he turns around and starts walking down the street. I stay in the same place, almost expecting him to rush back and start pounding on the door. Luckily, my husband got back after only a few minutes. He convinced me to call the police, and we went out looking for our dog. It turns out that this man had cut the end of the line connecting to the pipe, and our dog decided this was a good time to explore our neighbour's yard, which was where we found him. What really worries me is that the guy must have had a knife to cut the dog loose. It's been 3 years since this happened. We've since moved to a new house for unrelated reasons, and the police weren't able to come up with any suspects. Ever since then, we take our dog on very long walks before the sun goes down. Number 3. When I was about 18 and living in a new city, a friend of mine told me about a friend of his who was trying to sell an old laptop. I was looking to buy a laptop, and the specs seemed good, so as long as it was on the up and up, I told him I'd buy it. The guy told me to meet him in a public place, which was all fine and good. I brought the cash. He showed up in a car full of some sketchy-looking people, and told me he didn't have the laptop with him. He said they were dropping him off, and asked if I could take him to pick up the laptop. It seemed kind of fishy, but I'm a big strong guy, and he was a friend of a friend, so I gave the guy a ride to pick it up. I started getting a bad feeling about the whole situation. I'm a safe driver. I check my mirrors, don't speed, make sure to signal, and check my blind spots. Well, my glancing at the mirrors made my passenger chirp up and say, "Don't worry about them following us. I just owe them some money. When you buy the laptop from me, I'm just gonna pay him." So, apparently the car behind us is the one that dropped him off, and full of 5 sketchy looking guys. And the dude who I was supposed to be buying the laptop from was worrying about me worrying about them following us. Great. Red flag city. I had no idea I was even being followed until my passenger anxiously piped up. The transaction, which was supposed to occur in a public place, was now being shifted to a more private area. I have cash on me. 5 sketchy guys are following me. And I have one guy in the car who is way too anxious for what's going on. It became extremely obvious to me that they were at least planning on robbing me. I wasn't freaked out. I was just like, oh shit, so this is what's going down. I can't stress enough that I'm usually the type of guy who's very collected, and I don't make up scary situations in my mind. It just became painfully obvious that that's what they were doing. So, the area we were driving didn't have many people milling about. I wanted to boot the guy from my car, but they had shown that they were worried about having our transaction in public, hence this whole song and dance leading me somewhere secluded. So I realized I needed to get to a more public place to keep them from acting. If I stopped right there and tried to kick him out, he might pull a weapon because we're somewhere isolated. Or maybe he would struggle and give his friends time to get out of their car and rush me. I kept following his directions to get to the apartment complex where the laptop was supposed to be, all the while looking for a spot in public with people around to pull over and kick this guy out, with his goon sketchy as fuck buddies tailing me. I could see them clearly in my rearview mirror, and these guys had some hard-ass ideas going through their heads. Anyway, we reached the entrance to our destination without coming to a good spot to kick this guy out. My time was up, and I couldn't fake like I didn't know what was going on anymore. His friends were right on my arse, so I couldn't stop to kick him out. They could be on me too fast. So I gunned it past the entrance. Whoa, you just missed the entrance. You were supposed to turn back there. I accelerated to get more distance between me and his friends. They accelerated too. I nailed my brakes to stop and try kick this guy out, but they were still right on me. I could see the expression on their faces in my mirrors. They knew the jig was up, and you could tell they were trying to decide what to do. In the moment of their indecision, I gunned it and flipped a U-turn. I accelerated really fucking fast to get some distance, and my passenger was screaming, "Whoa, what are you doing, man? The apartment's back there." I got a few 100 yards distance between us and his friends before they could flip their car around and follow us. I hit the brakes hard and pulled over, and with the most intimidating voice and mannerisms I could muster, I yelled, "I know what the fuck's up. Get the hell out of my car right now." Even if someone's planning on robbing you 1 minute, if you show a terrifying demeanor, they'll reconsider really fast. You could see the decision mulling over in his head. He's got a big, intimidating dude yelling at him to get out of the car. But instead of getting out like a normal person who wasn't guilty of anything, he sat there a moment, considering what he should do. He looked at me like he was sizing me up, and then he looked back to see if his friends were right behind us to give him a hand. But they aren't, and he knows I'm serious, and that he can't bullshit for 20 seconds to wait for them to catch up. Shit is going to get real really fast if he doesn't move. He kind of gave me a knowing smirk, kind of saying in a way, "Hey, it was worth a try," and got out of my car. I gassed it out of there, right as his friends turned up. I saw them in the mirror, and they were pissed. They were worked up and yelling at each other and motioning towards me, clearly in a get him fashion. My ex-passenger hopped in their car, and they followed for a bit, and then gave up because I headed to a very busy and public area, knowing that they wouldn't try anything in a crowd. Hey guys, Lazy here, and thank you very much for listening. I hope you enjoyed these stories, and let me know if you have any ambush or trap experiences yourself down in the comments below. I have a Q&A coming very soon, so also leave any questions you might have, I might pick up on them. And yeah, hopefully we're gonna have some fun there. Thank you to everybody who's subscribed to the channel. I can't believe we've hit 300,000 subscribers. That's crazy. But thanks everyone. This is a huge milestone, and I never thought I'd get this big. But yeah, you're all awesome. You're all total dons, and you can interpret that however you like. Do some naughty things with that like button, and I'll have some more stories for you guys very, very soon. Stay spooky, and remember, the best things happen in the dark. It's a trap.